The race for a Bitcoin strategic reserve is on in the United States. That's right, two of the largest states with the largest GDPs in the United States are now proposing strategic reserves. But these GDPs are so large, they're some of the largest in the world as well. So, how monumental are these policies for individual states? And just how big is this for Bitcoin going forward? We'll dive in between the differences of these two major states and highlight some of the positives and the potential impacts going forward. But we'll start off right off the bat where I'm located most of the time in Florida. The Florida CFO proposed to follow Trump's lead, where Jimmy Patronis has formally requested the state's pension fund has now managers explore the feasibility of investing in Bitcoin, positioning the state to potentially adopt a Bitcoin strategic reserve asset. That was all this later dated in October 29th, 2024. And it addressed to Chris Spencer, the executive director of Florida's State Board and Administrator. So Patronis' proposal came off the heels of President Trump's recent speech. And I think on top of this, Trump's impact in the state of Florida is not to be undermined here, where he's got all his family down there. Mar-a-Lago, as many of you all know, is where Trump calls home base when he's not at DC at the White House either. So Florida is very near and dear to Trump's heart. We had Ron DeSantis, very open-minded, letting everybody kind of live their life at a normal pace when it came to 2020 and everything else. And, what are you thinking of the timing of these strategic reserves? Well, seems like it could happen pretty quick here. Florida, they're speculating a reserve by Q1 of next year. We're sitting here December 13th. Q1 starts in 18 days, folks. That's less than 3 weeks away. So they're thinking that there's the potential of this starting very quickly as everything is moving here quickly. My boy, Sam Arms of the Florida Bitcoin and Blockchain Business Association is confident that the Florida has a, quote, very good chance of creating a Bitcoin strategic reserve in this during this upcoming legislative session, which begins in the first quarter. And so this would be a $185.7 billion pension fund, the fourth largest in the United States. And Florida has already invested in Bitcoin and crypto-related assets through their pension fund already. So they would just allocate at least 1%, maybe even more, towards Bitcoin, which would be 1% of 185 billion, well over $1 billion into that. So this could all be moving really quickly as I highlighted here. It'll be a $185.7 billion pension fund. But this would also be a push towards a strategic reserve, not only in the pension fund, but just overall for the state as well. So Florida is going to become very, very friendly to Bitcoin and everything going forward with this. But just how big is Florida? And we've got Austin in the chat here again. Austin, thank you so much for joining in, man. Good to see you again. But how big is Florida and how big is this impact? Well, let's take a look at Florida by GDP. So Florida's GDP is $1.695 trillion, at least according to Wikipedia here. And it is the fourth largest of any single state in the United States. So 1.69, it said. So how would that be globally, right? We've got the US, who's obviously a behemoth at 25. But if you get down here, it's just out of the top 10, where Australia's at 1.675 trillion. And so, Florida would be the 12th largest country if we're just looking at strictly at GDP of, relative to, all these countries' global GDP. Now, on the flip side of things, I mentioned two states at the beginning of this, two giant behemoths adopting a Bitcoin strategic reserve. Who's the other state? Well, it's where I'm currently located right now, right this second, coming to you live from the state of Texas. they got on a Twitter space there yesterday, I believe, with with Vote Giovanni, with Giovanni Cabliglione. I'm not Italian by descent, so these words here, they make it a little tough, these last names, but it's House Bill 1598. The details include holding Bitcoin for 5 years at a minimum, and it will include allowing payments for taxes and other bills. We'll get into the more of the details of that, but let's dive into the GDP of Texas. It's the second biggest GDP of any state at 2.694 trillion. So now let's refer back to here, right? 2.69 trillion. That's bigger than Russia. That's just under France when it comes to GDP. So that would be the 8th largest country in the world if it were to just strictly be off on its own. So now we have the potential of the 8th and the 12th biggest countries in the world to adopt a Bitcoin strategic reserve, with Texas and Florida. Now, on top of all that, let's look at the population size here just so we can get a little bit of an idea. The population by state, California, obviously the biggest. It's the number one in GDP as well. But Texas and Florida are the second and third most populated states in the entire United States. So this is absolutely monumental as more people in these states get exposure to Bitcoin, whether it's through their strategic reserve, people talking about it, that kind of aspects of things. I don't think that impact can be understated here at all. I think it would be definitely more of a topic of a conversation. They'd see the states prosper. And on top of this, not only are these two states, quote unquote, red states, they also don't have state income tax. So, they don't have quite as much inflow of capital as many of these other states do, like in New York or California or something else along those lines, because those states have state income tax. The higher states, or they have higher taxation in those states as well. So the GDP, although it's higher in California, the gap between the amount of taxation income that Texas and Florida receive is significant comparatively to California. But let's keep diving into the state of Texas, or the state of Texas, how this will impact its economy and potential taxpayers. So let's see what traditional media is saying about all this. Let's dive into a little bit, right? So everything is bigger in Texas. The Lone Star State plans to launch the largest strategic Bitcoin reserve in the United States. Well, it's interesting that that's part of the headline here, as Bitcoin Reserve has not been launched yet. It's just the proposal. But like I said, everything's bigger in Texas, and it's all part of the marketing, right? So Texas wants to have the strategic reserve and be one of the first to launch it. So Cabliglione said that they will authorize state agencies to accept Bitcoin for state payments, and Texas will be able to donate in Bitcoin to their strategic reserve, and they want individuals in Texas to be able to pay taxes and fees in Bitcoin. But I think the bigger part of this is that the Bitcoin reserve account will hold for a minimum of 5 years before being able to be transferred out. So that sounds bullish as hell to me, where this state senator is now proposing a Bitcoin strategic reserve, sees that, hey, what Michael Saylor said, even if there's a dip there next year, or we see the price fall drastically, they need to hold for at least 5 years. So you can't count your chickens before they hatch. But I think that this is an interesting proposal relative to Florida, because Florida is lining out, hey, let's allocate some of the state pension fund to Bitcoin, where Texas is saying, hey, let's get some people to pay us in Bitcoin. Now, these are two completely different approaches, but the way that these states are lined out are two completely different ways. There are major mining facilities here in the state of Texas where there isn't in Florida. So in the state of Texas, they have Marathon, Riot, all these other big guys who have big, huge mining facilities, who in order to pay these taxes, they have to, then sell their Bitcoin, convert it to fiat. Then they get a tax hit on whatever they mined out of it, and then go from there. But yeah, as Austin said, if you guys are here, smash the like button. I'm working hard to try to bring some of this great information to you guys. So I appreciate that. Austin, always joining on in. There's 102 of you in here. So, smash that like button, tell a friend to hop in before this ends. And yeah, so no tax. And the other interesting part of this is that no taxpayer funds will be spent on buying Bitcoin. So, with all of this, I always wonder, why do they highlight that? Why do they want to be specific and say, hey, no taxpayer funds are going to be spent buying Bitcoin? Is it because they're still wary of it? Is it because they're cognizant of the potential negative implications of Bitcoin? I'm not quite sure. But what I do know is that this is a major impact here. And these two states are spending a complete different way. And it is interesting too, where this bill establishes a Bitcoin reserve and the management of cryptocurrencies. So, although Texas is very pro Bitcoin, when it comes to mining and everything else, I still think the governments in the United States have yet to make a clear distinction between Bitcoin and crypto when it comes to these policies. Now, do I think that we'll get there? Yes, I do. I do think that we'll get there eventually. But, as I shown in a previous live stream, the US Treasury is now designating Bitcoin as digital gold. So, they're getting there. They're on first base of their Bitcoin journey, but they're not quite there just yet. So I think, from there, Texas implementing the strategic reserve. And I think on top of it, it was launched on a Twitter Spaces, which I think is pretty interesting here. But to summarize, Texans will buy and hold Bitcoin as a strategic asset. It'll store its Bitcoin in cold storage as well, which I think is a major key here that I glanced over initially. So I think that that's also big. It allows Texas residents to donate to Bitcoin, ensure transparency as yearly audits, and it'll accept crypto and convert them to Bitcoin, which I think is big as well. And so, yeah, I think the securities and domains management is also very important. And I think it is important to highlight too that even though they were I feel like the government is not super distinct on when it comes to differences between crypto and Bitcoin. I am very bullish that the state of Texas wants to convert any type of crypto just fully into Bitcoin. So I think that we're getting to a good place with these different governments. And I think it is very big. Now, let's highlight that again, where how big these two states are, because I don't think that that can be understated or overstated enough, where these are two of the largest states in the United States. And it's not even close, right? So we have California, New York, Florida, Texas. Those are the top four. And then after that, there is a pretty big drop off. And, the other states maybe have a major city or two, obviously Illinois with Chicago, Georgia with Atlanta. But outside of that, those two states or those four states are head and shoulders above the other states. And I think that, highlighting that their GDP would be the eighth and the 12th biggest of any country in the entire world is monumental and cannot be understated at all, because it's absolutely big. And I think it's interesting too, because obviously we've gotten over this mental barrier, the psychological barrier of 100K. We're still kind of just crab walking around here. So even though these states are having this arms race for Bitcoin, we're, essentially just still kind of just sitting here right now at 101, just crab walking along today. We had a decent day. We ended in the green, which is obviously, very positive. But I think that there's a ton of factors here as to, why Bitcoin will continue to go up. Obviously, I think the nation state FOMO is coming, and I think the state's FOMO is coming as well. But, we're still not out of this fiat system. We're still not out of, the craziness that the fiat system incentivizes. I mean, we're on YouTube here, so I have to mince my words a little bit, but we've seen a lot of craziness in the health insurance industry. And what just happened in the health insurance industry? If you do not know what I'm talking about, I'm just going to allude to it so you can do your own research. But since that happened, I've been looking for a great partner to partner with to help bring you guys more reliable access to health insurance and a health insurance alternative. So I found out my friends at Crowd Health. They are the absolute best to where it comes down to it. You can go to their websites as joincrowdhealth.com. You could sign up. You can use promo code Green Candle for all of this, and you'll get 3 months at $99 for your first 3 months using promo code Green Candle. But it helps you understand that here in the United States, you don't necessarily need health insurance. They'll help you find great doctors, negotiate your bills, and fund those bills through the peer-to-peer platforms for a lot less than you normally would. So Crowd Health is absolutely amazing. They're absolutely great. They've got so many great things that they can help offer. I know that a lot of things in the United States become very expensive and become very, cumbersome, but use promo code Green Candle. You'll get 3 months for just $99. And I think it's a hell of a deal to help get you started and get you off to the right foot here come starting 2025. So evaluate what you're doing and join the revolution, join the other people into Crowd Health, and get your Bitcoin off an exchange, folks. Protect yourself, not only from the craziness in the health insurance industry, but from everything that we got going on in the world. So the best way to store your seed phrase is stamp seed, the number one way. They've got the most indestructible punch plates, and it's also easy to use. They have the hammer, they have the full entire set. You can use promo code Green Candle to get 15% off your entire order. So just go in there, go get yourself a 100K milestone titanium plate, get yourself a Bitcoin stamp or some other storage plates, and you can get this all and get it ready to go. We're here for the holiday season. Teach your family about getting Bitcoin off an exchange. Highlight all this craziness that I've been highlighting here in these live streams about these giant monumental states getting Bitcoin strategic reserves and proposing all of that. So be sure you highlight that. I mean, look at what's going on here. We've got the United States, we've got multiple states, and we've got, BlackRock ETFs, we got Amazon voting on it. Like, I don't know how you guys could not be more bullish here going forward. So I appreciate you all coming on. But as Austin said, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, tell a friend to tell a friend. And thank you guys all for tuning in for another live stream. I will catch you guys all at the next one.